Alabama gets set to take on Missouri this week, and both teams dealing with some injuries. But for Missouri, it's their star players. The running back and possibly the quarterback won't be available. We'll get into that and more right here on the All-American Report. Let's get this thing started. Like and subscribe. Thumbs up, everybody, and a big roll tide. I love that. This is just the Atlanta A coming at you. Now you live in Atlanta. That was like you knowing that you were going to be there one day.
Dude, here's the thing about that, and I was asked about that this week. Not about me doing the A, but about playing in big games because I was talking about going to Atlanta. Like, it gets announced that Bama's getting a Super Bowl in a couple of years. The World Cup's coming here. The National Championship this year. We've had Final Fours, all that over here in Atlanta. And, we're talking about going to big games. And I was like, dude, I honestly can't imagine anything being as big. And obviously, the Bama-Georgia national title is big. There's been a number of things. Number 1 versus number 2, Florida at 08 and 09. I don't know, dude. Like, I know I played in it, so I'm a little bit partial. But, man, couple slugfests between two of the best teams in the country and really a transition from one dynasty to the other. Like, come on, dude. Like, that's what gets your blood pumping, man. Going out and taking care of Tim and Urban and all those guys in 09. Like, come on, dude. Like, that, whoo, let's go.
When you watch that, and this is totally off topic, but when you watch that, the shows, like there's like the Netflix show on that Florida team.
Couldn't watch it.
Then there's the whole thing about the tight end that was a mass murder, serial killer. I shouldn't say
I can't watch it. I haven't been on. People ask me about the Florida thing all the time. Like, I can't watch it. I don't know why. I don't like watching some docuseries like that that's all in hindsight because it's so over the top and dramatized about what things were back then. It's like the whole Vince McMahon thing. Like, one guy's being like, this happened, and the next guy's being like, no, that definitely didn't happen. And the next guy's being like, oh, that happened, I was there. And then the next guy's being like, definitely didn't happen, I was there. You're like, who's telling the friggin' truth? I know it's not the tight end, though. I can tell you that. I stepped into here's a story for you. Speaking of that tight end, stepped into a elevator at the NFL Combine with myself. It was tight ends and offensive linemen. It was myself and Colin Peake, Holly McGee to the Bama people, and Aaron Hernandez in the elevator at the Combine up in Indianapolis. And Colin, being grew up a Florida fan, went to Georgia Tech, obviously. He looks at Aaron and goes, "What's up, Bato?" Dude. Aaron takes a minute, takes a deep breath, looks at him. It's Bato. Bato with a V. Bato. And Colin's like, oh, okay, cool. And the elevator doors open, and we all walked off. Never thought another thing about it until years later when I'm like, guy wasn't very happy with that whole situation, man. I'm glad we got out of there.
Yeah. Could have been bad for you guys, huh?
Like, geez, dude. Like, that's a crazy feeling looking back on it. But anyhow, I mean, those were big games, man. So there you go, the Atlanta thing. That's is what it is.
Well, this weekend in Tuscaloosa, it's homecoming, and when they scheduled Missouri for homecoming, they probably weren't thinking that Missouri was going to be one of the best teams in the country. They're 6-1, although they're not getting a lot of respect. I mean, they're still ranked 21st, so they're pretty low down there for a one-loss team with 6 wins. But they had an incredible comeback against Auburn. Brady Cook, their quarterback, went to the hospital. You talked about it last show, and then the ankle came back, led him to a win. But now they're saying he's doubtful, and Noel, the running back, is going to be out. So that's, if they don't have those two guys, their offense without them against Auburn looked terrible.
Yeah, they definitely did. And Brady Cook is the guy. I mean, it's funny. You're like, man, what a comeback win. They finally were able to get it clicking in the second half. Like, if you didn't watch it, and then you realize Brady Cook's gone for 2 hours, like 2 hours of actual time. This guy's not on the field. Like, I don't even know how you get stretched out again after that. Like, do you think, like, my former football player self is like, did he change his undershirt or anything? Like, did he just sweat, all the sweat, go get the MRI and then come straight back to the field, stretch a little bit, maybe do a little jogging and get back going. So he throws an absolute seed on a crossing route there in the second half when he comes back in. Explosive play. score a touchdown the next play against Auburn, and they come back. So he's definitely the guy. I mean, he is, he makes his team different. Noel, the running back, extremely explosive. And I think the way to stop him is actually to get penetration on some of the east and west style running plays, the outside zone things they do. We're not really a penetration style of defense right now, so that's kind of worrisome as well. And he has home run speed. So we're going to definitely test Missouri's depth this week. Now, I know that when you look at Burden, the wide receiver, he's still going to be available. Top 3 wide receivers in the NFL draft. So that's something to pay attention to as well. But it definitely looks like we're not going to get Missouri's best shot. And I think that all of that kind of comes together when you and I talked about the Vegas spread on Tuesday when we recorded the last show. It's like Vegas knows something. I think what they knew is
that
quarterback wasn't playing and had the insight on that. So it's an interesting matchup. I'm not taking anything for granted. I don't think Tennessee played well, and they still were able to beat us. So I don't know that I'm looking at anything that Missouri may or may not be able to do. To me, this game, it's about Alabama. It's about not beating yourself. Tennessee did, and Tennessee fans will disagree. Tennessee didn't beat us. Bama beat themselves in this game. And if you're not able to get that corrected, Mick, the same thing will happen against Mizzou. You beat yourself, not Mizzou coming out and beating you.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I mean, I felt the same exact way watching the game against Tennessee, and I felt like Alabama did a lot of things wrong. Now, we've had a ton of engagement on social media. You were talking about watching the plays and, up to 6 players doing the wrong thing on a play. And I feel like people want you to elaborate more on that just because, you will know how to watch film. I mean, you did that when you were at Alabama. You did that in the NFL, and you were an offensive coordinator in high school or offensive line coach. But I know you watch a lot of film, and that's
either or, yeah.
What you're looking at.
Well, and that's the thing too, man. I mean, some of the basic things that just seem elementary on the surface, and a lot of times, Mick, I'll be honest with you, and it's like this a lot more because I analyze Atlanta Falcons film and I do the pre and post for the Atlanta Falcons and watch the All 22, and the NFL makes the All 22 available. You get the butt shot, you get all these other things. And a lot of times when I watch film, right, you turn it on, you go, somebody that doesn't know football really to an extreme, they'll look at it and go, oh, well, this happened or Jalen got hit in the back or
right.
And you have to look at it through a different lens, right? You have to look at it and say, well, the offensive line's rules are probably to protect the A gap, or, this is going to happen. They'll show blitz this side. They'll bluff this lineman. This guy will take 2 steps and he'll drop in the flat and defend. And there's nothing the lineman can do, right? And so this has been a buildup of the last 3 weeks, honestly. But now when I watch Bama, I'm looking at it through that lens of saying, offensive line, coordinator, whatever it is, counting the box, just more and more things don't line up. Like, I don't understand how, with a 4 wide receiver set and all these, these blitz looks that Jalen would tell the running back, hey, we don't need you in protection. You split out wide, or why that would be a part, or what the adjustment is supposed to be. Right. A lot of times in other offenses, when you get a 6-man blitz look, right, you get the man up outside, you'll throw the speed screen to the wide receiver or an RPO off of a run fake or whatever it may be. You leave the running back in to block one of the 6 men and you slide protection up front. There's different ways to go about these things. You don't ever do the same thing because then the defensive coordinator can adjust to that, right?
Right.
But speed screen to the wide receiver, flare route to the running back in the flat, or the running back step up, or maybe motion somebody else in, or whatever. I mean, it's like there's no plan B sometimes. And I don't know where the fault falls. It could be the blocking. Could be Jalen's supposed to get us into a different play. There might be a kill check or something like that. But you also got to take into account Kalen DeBoer's system, Nick Sheridan's system of this, these 4 vertical routes and everybody getting out and you spacing things out. So it just seems like whatever the game plan is at times, looking back on Tennessee, that it just doesn't line up. I can't watch the film and go, oh, well, we can diagnose it with this, or this guy, probably his rule was to do this and he didn't. Like I mentioned against South Carolina, some of the 2-man reads the right side of the offensive line was having, not putting them in a good spot to have good pass pro, and in a couple sacks. Even more of that was happening against Tennessee. And I'm like, I can't get in here and talk about and diagnose like who's the issue. because it's impossible to tell. There's a dysfunction at a very elementary level with what's going on. So it could be simply, Ryan Williams running a wrong route and Jalen thinking, okay, well, this coverage, Ryan should be open. I don't think it was that, because he got 20 targets last week, which is unbelievable. But there's always those small things going on, right? And the more I look at this film and this tape of last week, can't figure it out. It's at all levels of the offense. There's a dysfunction or a breakdown in communication or scheme, and it just a little bit of everything, and it's frustrating.
I hope that is corrected this week against Mizzou. Head coach Kalen DeBoer's 50 today. It's his birthday. He's under a lot of pressure, I'm sure, for the first time in his career with this much of a, magnification of, fan interest and national interest. When he was at Washington, it was like they were kind of a real fun story. Hey, what could Washington be a real player in this? At Alabama, you're at the top of the mountain. And when you give games away like they did against Tennessee, or you're not prepared like they were against Vanderbilt, I don't think that it's even, to me now, I know that some people are going to disagree. To me, it's not even about the winning and losing. I've told you this. It's that I'm watching a product that I know isn't good enough to get the job done, and I'm not seeing any improvement from one week to the next. And then on top of that, I'm watching the press conferences, and I don't believe some of the stuff I'm hearing. I just don't. I don't think that you coach guys to watch a fourth down play and shoot fadeaway baskets. Yeah, like fake baskets. I don't think that I think that the guy that, King Mack ran off the field and then fell on the ground, I think that was a fake injury. I get that one because, look, I mean, maybe you don't want to get fined for it, but it was obvious. And I think that Ryan Williams got targeted almost 20 times, and I think they were forcing the ball to him, even though they said that they weren't. If they don't get that part of it corrected and start being more honest, that they're gonna lose this fan base. Is that a fair assessment?
Well, let's just put it this way: they're going to lose the fan base if they don't start winning, right? And there's a saying, obviously, when you're a part of a football team in these locker rooms and in these complexes, that winning cures all. Like, you'll be forgiven for a lot of missteps if you simply go out there and win. And you look at the state of some of the struggling program. I mean, we don't have to look any further than Auburn, Alabama right now, and the pressure that guy's under. And to me, it's magnified tenfold because you've had time to get your system implemented. You've blamed the players. On the flip side, where Kalen DeBoer's taking it off their shoulders, you've put the blame back on them down in Auburn. And it's like, at what point, like, we wonder at what point is there accountability with the players? Like, at what point are we like, man, hey, you need to go chew that kid out for what he did, or, this, like, we wonder about accountability. All our people are down there wondering when there's accountability with the coach. Like, when does he take blame? When does he look at himself down there? So I think it's definitely a hard line to kind of toe, right? If you're Kalen DeBoer and you most of these guys you did not recruit, right? I mean, you didn't recruit a lot of these guys in this locker room, and you're trying to develop these relationships. So I think if you just met a Malachi Moore, it's a little bit harder to step in front of this podium and say, yeah, Malachi messed up. You're kind of trying to ingratiate yourself. You're trying to, and we've talked about this till we're blue in the face on this show, Mick. It's different than it's ever been, because if you don't do that a lot of times, guess what? Bye-bye. I'm out of here. I might even get a pay raise at my next stop, for your star players. So there is a lot of, here's what I will say. There is a lot of things in 2007 that Nick Saban overlooked for these exact reasons. And I've told this story a number of times, and I know it's been told by other guys. I will replace you when I can replace you. It wasn't hey, I'm going to kick you off the team. Like, that wasn't Nick's style. He wasn't a kick you off team guy. It was when I can replace you, I will replace you. And guess what he did? He goes out and signs the #1 recruiting class in 2008, maybe the greatest class in the history of classes. Right? When you talk about everybody he brought in 2008, then turns around again, gets a good one again in 2009, and you end up winning a national title. So I just think there's a number of different ways to go this. It's very delicate, right? And I mentioned on Tuesday when we recorded the last show, it makes me feel good. The recruiting's still heading in the right direction. And that's one of the reasons, right? Yeah. It's like he kind of has to toe this line of like, I need these guys, but I also need them to understand that they have to do things a lot better. And so I think that my kind of, when you talk about he's going to lose a fan base, my runway is a lot longer because I've seen this situation kind of play out, and I've seen, you know, how these coaching transitions have to work. And I've seen the promises that Coach Saban made to the older guys in 2007 of, I'll replace you as soon as I can, while also stomaching the fact that you're going 7-6 and having to go to Shreveport again. So it's tough, man.
Yeah, I was listen, at Shreveport for all 3 of those games, by the way.
Well, I don't even know what third one you're talking about. The 2 that I went to were miserable. Missed freaking Christmas to go over to the you know, whatever casino hotel we were, the Harrows or whatever. Miserable. But it just, I think that my runway is, and I'll plea again with people, Mick. We're here to commiserate with you, but at the same time, man, believe me, give this guy a little leeway. I am with everybody else that says I need to see the discipline at some point. I need to see a fired up Kalen DeBoer. I need to see the accountability. I just don't think these relationships are there just yet, right? I think once he has a longer kind of leash with these guys and knows them a little bit better, because if you're going to hold somebody accountable, you have to know them on a personal level. I think that's when that starts to come in. If we don't, right, you get a year or 2 years down the road from now and you still struggle with a team playing as bad as Tennessee is, and you see what happens at the end of the game and somebody's not getting chewed out, then I'm like, all right, man, like, you know, I've seen this play out too many times. This is not getting any better. But for right now, man, I still feel extremely content with Kalen DeBoer as a coach. And I think, like I said the other day, I try not to be a prisoner of the times, and I try not to say, well, you know, this has got to be the way Nick did it. It just, that doesn't happen anymore. The accountability is not there. I mean, Lord knows every time there's an arrest notification that comes across my phone over here in Atlanta, Georgia fans are like, man, we got to hold these kids accountable. How? Like, what, you know, what do you do? So it's frustrating, man. But, you know, I still have full faith in this coaching staff, even though I think they're definitely massaging the truth at times, Mick.
Yeah. I just look at it, and the early issues that I'm seeing are discipline issues, not off the field, obviously, that we know of, but on the field. And I'm wondering if a Dan Lanning, if you know, Kirby Smart type guy, which they weren't going to get Kirby, although I would have paid him $20 million. I've said that from the beginning. I would have paid him so much that Georgia was going to have to pay him. Right. And then, you know what?
Got him a raise.
You just made them spend $20 million. So it's a win-win.
Let me slow down. Can I slow you down for just a second? Okay, look at the names at the top of that list. Dan Lanning, yes. Okay. He did, like, as short as Kalen DeBoer's track record is as a head coach, Dan Lanning's even smaller. And Kalen DeBoer beat him twice last year. Mm-hmm. And then I'm thinking about this the other day when I'm looking at Steve Sarkisian at Texas. Well, they're getting absolutely manhandled by Georgia.
Right. And he wasn't going to be I don't think he was a realistic option.
Okay, now let me tell you who I definitely know for a fact was a realistic option. It's the guy down in Tallahassee right now that they're stuck with like a $70 million buyout with him now, and he's not very good.
Right.
So let's just keep all that in mind as well. If you're one of these people kind of looking back, well, we could have got this guy. There's not a magic, right? There's not a magic way to snap your fingers and make any of this stuff happen. Mike Norvell, I know for a fact, was a candidate for that job, for Bama job.
Right.
And they gave him all the money in the world. And you want to talk about somebody with a culture problem right now, buddy. And what we saw last year play out in the Orange Bowl with him,
I wouldn't have had him on my list, though. I mean, when you're seeing half your team leave like that, before you're undefeated, you go to a bowl game to play against Georgia, that tells you something. I mean, we didn't see that with Nick Saban. What I'm saying is that there needs to be some sort of guidelines, and it doesn't feel like that. I mean, we make excuses up for everybody. Oh, you know, he didn't block on this play, but that play wasn't designed to block. Oh, okay. And now all of a sudden we're just standing around. Like, or is he just young and doesn't know he's supposed to be there? Or are we making an excuse?
Ryan Williams, you talking about Jamarcus Shepard and the Ryan Williams play?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, what are we doing here? I mean, you look at it, I look at it, it's like, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I didn't play as much football as you, but normally they want you to at least make contact with somebody, you know, instead of just like running in a circle. But the excuses are what I can't stand, man. Like, I don't need you to make excuses up. What the guy, if Jalen Milroe's hurt, I mean, give us a hint that he's hurt, you know, like, And I
Right.
guess you're not really supposed to do that, but you know what I mean? Like, it's just
Well, you're
feels like
supposed to do it now more than you ever had. There's freaking injury reports now.
right.
So here's what I say about the Ryan Williams play. And Jamarcus Shepard's kind of saying, well, he's not supposed to, but he didn't whiff on a block.
Let's
Because I
change
know
the
that,
narrative, he said.
right. I know that, that was a whole Greg McElroy thing from the broadcast. Here's what I will say, because I'm sort of with you on this one. Here's how the play was designed, right? You have one receiver on the right, you got three on the left. The three on the left are running a wide receiver screen. The wide receiver on the right is Ryan Williams. He's got a corner that's, it's 3rd and 22, right? He's got a corner that's 15 yards off of him. I think if this is a 3rd and 7 kind of play, Ryan Williams is running the corner off. They might be man coverage, right? He's trying to get depth so that you can clear out the safety in the corner so that maybe your running back kind of makes somebody miss on a check down or screen or whatever it is. That's kind of what I'm talking about on the top. Like, a lot of these plays look broken. That looked like, to me, a screen. It looked like a running back screen, honestly, just without a count delay. Now, I don't think that's what they called it. I don't think it's what it was. But to me, that would have seemed better if you look at what Ryan Williams does. If the offensive line is supposed to be running a screen out in front of the running back, then you're like, well, maybe Ryan Williams is supposed to be running them off, or maybe the offensive line didn't get the play call. But if it was a screen, the running back is getting out too fast, right? The check down is there and all this other stuff. The other thing is, maybe Ryan Williams thought they were throwing the wide receiver screen off to the left.
Right.
You got two blockers. You got a safety way off. Maybe you get two blockers out in front of the guy running the screen, and maybe he makes somebody miss, and you can pick up 22 yards. Maybe Jalen Milroe didn't read the defense right. There's so many instances like that, because I'm with you. I'm like, Ryan Williams looks like he should have at least tried to lay a block. Looks like he didn't expect the guy to be behind him. And I'm not the offensive coordinator, wide receiver coach at Alabama, but I've seen enough football like you to know that something's amiss. But it's like, they don't want to say what's amiss. Like, they don't want to say what the play design was, because maybe they're throwing somebody else in. Maybe they're throwing Jalen Milroe under the bus, the offensive line, or the other wide receivers. I don't know. But there's too many times like this. And specifically, when you look at the reason they were in 3rd and 22, the freaking punch to the face, where you just kind of shrug your shoulders and go, I don't know what they were supposed to do. So I would say that I gave a shoulder shrug, Mick, and I didn't sit down and diagnose every play. But I would say I gave a shoulder shrug probably 10 times in this game. Like, what was the design of that?
Yeah, right.
Why are we letting two defensive ends go on a counter play? Like, I don't know what it is. So they know better than me. They've run this offense. Obviously, it's been successful at other stops. But I think at this point, to your question about Kalen DeBoer and how long the leash is with the fans, it should be very, very long, because he should have the ability to teach his offense and get his players and everything else. But there's a lot of head scratching moments right now, and hopefully you're due for kind of a get back game.
Yeah, well, and the fact that you're probably not going to see Brady Cook, you're going to see Drew Payne, and it wasn't great. You remember him, or excuse me, Drew Pine. He was the quarterback at Notre Dame, transferred to Missouri. He was like 10 of 21 in that game against Auburn, wasn't very good. And then, of course, Cook came in and led the comeback. So we'll see what happens there on Saturday. Now, a couple quarterbacks to talk about in the NFL. You cover the NFL following the first place Falcons. I want to say that while it lasts.
Big game this weekend against Tampa Bay Bucks. I was going to say it while you can, hopefully. Hopefully it stays that way. But yeah, big one this weekend.
Yeah, big one against the Bucks in a divisional matchup. But two Bama quarterbacks are returning, and one quarterback is Bryce Young. He was the first overall pick, and he got the short straw, but the big paycheck, right? He's in a situation where it's really hard to succeed in Carolina. They stink, and then now they're blaming him for it. If he would have gone somewhere else, and I pray that he'll get traded to a team that he doesn't have to carry everything, because I believe in his abilities. I think he's good. And then my all-time favorite Alabama player, besides you, Mike, is Tua.
Tua is my favorite. He's my favorite Alabama player of all time.
Yeah, and he's back, and I worry about his health, man. I love Tua, and I worry about his health coming back from the concussions. I don't want to see long-term damage, but you know what? He's also, when he's in the game, he's a difference maker. So two guys coming back that we both love. Two of the best of all time in Alabama.
Yeah, and I think that what's funny is it's definitely two different circumstances. When you talk about Bryce Young, Andy Dalton, who has been playing in his place, gets in a car accident, injures the thumb. When I look at Bryce Young, man, like I hope, to your point, I hope he goes to a different team. Dave Canales is their head coach. He was Tampa Bay's offensive coordinator last year. There's not a lot of background there to say this is what this guy should be. And you know what's interesting, Mick? These two stories are correlated. And I don't know if you even know this. Last year, Miami had a much better offensive line, and Carolina didn't. And what Carolina did is they went and they signed Miami's right guard in free agency to bring him in and protect Bryce Young. So he's not protecting Tua anymore. Now he's protecting Bryce Young. Very good player. Pay him very handsomely. I think like $20 million a year. So good player. I think Carolina's. I just don't think Bryce. I don't think he has a home there. I don't think he's being taught. First of all, I don't think he's played well. Let me just say that up front. I don't think he's played very well right there. He's very slight. There's no like physical advantage he seems to have. There's no arm strength advantage, no ability to roll out. I mean, he's a smaller guy. Hopefully he can bulk up in the offseason. But hopefully, honestly, I hope he can find a new destination as well. Maybe that destination is down in Miami with Tua, because you don't know what the longevity is for Tua down there. Right. I'm with you. Tua is my favorite college player of all time, man. I'm going to be a little bit nervous turning on the Miami Dolphins games from here on out, to be honest with you, because of that, right? And I think we all worry for Tua's long-term health. I respect his decision. I know he's probably talked to 10 different physicians about this entire ordeal, right? So I know that he's done the research necessary. He's talked to his family. You know what kind of guy Tua is. He's not just going to be a brash, I'm doing what I want to do. I'm sure he did the research, but I'm hoping for the best for Bryce. I hope Bryce gets moved out of Carolina. I really do.
Yeah.
I just think that whole organization with David Tepper as the owner is toxic. On the flip side, I'm hoping Tua can stay healthy for the near future and the long-term future, and they can find a way to keep him upright and him not try to truck any more safeties from here on out.
Show's brought to you by MyBookie. Use the promo code next round to double your initial deposit. Bama all of a sudden really starting to put some distance between them and Missouri as far as the spread goes, right? It went from 13 to like 16. You can get that game on mybookie.ag. Also, hey, check it out for yourself. You got the World Series starting on Friday. You've got the NBA starting. Somehow LeBron James' son is now playing with LeBron James. Wow, it's amazing since the sun isn't any good. But you know what? You can still
it feels like the Houston Astros winning the World Series, Mick. It's like it happened, but it felt a little cheap, to be honest with you. The whole father son thing. You know what I mean? Like that's what it feels like. You're like,
2017, right? Yeah.
No, I'm with you, man. But a couple of good games in college football. Obviously, LSU, Texas A&M. You and I talked about Tuesday. The leaders in the SEC right now. I think that's a big matchup. I'm rooting for Texas A&M in this one, not because I hate LSU, but because I really want to see an undefeated Texas A&M face off against Texas at the end of the season on Thanksgiving weekend, that Saturday. Man, can you imagine that? Maybe a night game. Oh, man, that would be absolute pageantry. And how about Texas headed up to Nashville, man?
Yeah, let me run through these.
It is Nashville.
I'm not going to let you get out of here without hitting all these games. All right, Arkansas at Mississippi State. We wouldn't normally talk about this one, but Mississippi State, even though they're 0-4, they're starting to show a lot of improvement. And then they're Arkansas is only a 6.5-point favorite in Starkville.
Yeah, Mississippi State's going to get somebody. They're going to get somebody that's not expecting it. They're a team. To Jeff Levy's credit, they play hard. They know what they're doing. They're just at a talent disadvantage. I don't know if this is the week though, because Sam Pittman has Arkansas playing very hard as well. To me, Arkansas is they're just bigger than you. You know what I mean? Like if you got into a fight, the other dude's just bigger than you. Like you're hoping to hit him on the chin a couple times, but eventually he'll land a haymaker. When you look at the way the tenacity they play with the interior of the defensive line, their linebackers, they play hard, man. And I like Arkansas in that game because of it. But Mississippi State, I'm telling you, man, they're going to get somebody.
Sneaky.
That's the reason this line is the way it is. They're going to get somebody.
Ole Miss hosting Oklahoma. Ole Miss, they are who we thought they were. It's like Lane Kiffin is the most overhyped coach in college football. I mean, he went to Tennessee, didn't work out there. Went to the Raiders before that, didn't work out there. Went to USC, came in with a bunch of hype. He's supposed to be this great recruiter, didn't work out there. He sold Alabama out as offensive coordinator to get the job down in Florida, did okay there. Now he's at Ole Miss. This is the year they spent $10 million reportedly for a roster, and it's not working out again. Like, he's just not that good of a leader, I think.
Let me tell you how I've summed this game up. This is how I'm summing this game up. If you combined Lane Kiffin and Venables into one person, they are the perfect head coach. Like, if they had a child, it would be perfect head coach. Venables with the no-nonsense attitude and the defensive acumen and the toughness kind of thing. And Lane Kiffin with the sly, kind of stylistic, I'm going to draw up a bunch of offensive plays, but I don't know how to get you to play really hard down in and down out. Like, those two things, if they mesh, I don't know if I've ever seen a game with two styles that are more opposite of what you're going to see this weekend in that game. So Oklahoma obviously dealing with a new offensive staff kind of thing going on. Ole Miss, I think Oklahoma's maybe the worst team in the SEC right now. Wow. Right now. I think it could have been Florida, could have been Mississippi State. Oklahoma, right now, they might be the worst team in the SEC. So I think Ole Miss handles business. I think it's 3-touchdown spread. What does Ole Miss look like handling business, though? I think will be a bigger question.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I think Ole Miss still beats them. Don't get me wrong, but would not be surprised. You said it. Texas is at Vandy, and they are an 18.5-point favorite. I'm waiting for the slipper to fall out of the Commodores. Well, whatever you want to call it. They're gonna take a beat down at some point. They're not surprising anyone anymore, but I still think they're dangerous, man. Although this one feels like it's going to be one of those typical Vanderbilt losses to me.
Here's what I always say about Vanderbilt every week. And I told people when they lost to Georgia State, they're not that bad. And they beat Bama. And I'm like, they're really not a bad team. Now they're 5-2, and they had a little bit of a hiccup last week. That's definitely for sure against Ball State. They're not going to probably beat Texas, but I'm just telling you, they don't beat themselves. It will be up to Texas to go out and beat them. Texas, obviously, with the big loss last week, kind of looking for a little bit of a get-back game. I think this is one of those that you're probably right at the spread, 3 touchdowns, and Sark just goes, you know what, we need to make a statement, and maybe just, continue to send Isaiah Bond on a go route or something. I don't know, but I'm with you. I mean, this is a sneaky top 25 game, though, in Nashville, man. I wouldn't rule anything out for Vanderbilt. I'm just telling you. To me, they don't have the speed to compete with Texas, but they're not going to beat themselves.
Well, look, Texas doesn't have Kane Womack as their defensive coordinator. They're going to figure out how to contain the triple option.
Right.
Sorry to say that. All right. You mentioned it, LSU at Texas A&M. This is a really fun game. Bama plays LSU next time around. Texas A&M finally taking advantage of all of the talent they have, but they don't have a signature win. They lost to Notre Dame to start the season, undefeated in the SEC. You kind of got into that one. Brian Kelly, Nussmeier's been kind of, he's kind of, what would you say? What was the quarterback, Brock Purdy? No, what was the Georgia quarterback that won the national championship? Kind of that type of guy.
You're talking about Buck Belue?
No. The guy that you were just talking about him before the show.
Oh, Stetson Bennett.
Yeah, kind of a Stetson Bennett.
No, man. Hey, no. Garrett Nussmeier's not been Stetson Bennett. I don't know. He's more of like an Uncle Rico, man. Like, he's gonna let the pigskin fly. You know what I mean? Like,
I was gonna say,
Garrett Nussmeier's like, man, I ain't scared to throw this thing down the middle of the field and try to split safeties. You know what I mean? Like, he's that kind of guy. In the NFL, that guy last year was Sam Howell for the Commanders. Like, Sam Howell's going to throw for 400 yards, but probably 5 picks along the way. To me, this game, Mick, comes down to, simply put, like you said, which one of these quarterbacks is going to win it for the other team. And Connor Wegman has shown flashes of being absolutely brilliant, as has Garrett Nussmeier. But they've also shown the ability to make really boneheaded plays as well. And I think that's what happened when LSU lost to USC. I think that's what A&M dealt with when they lost to Notre Dame, man. So, 2 gritty teams, 2 teams that have talent sprinkled in all over the place, but also 2 quarterbacks that they're a little bit of a mixed bag. So one of these quarterbacks will give it away to the other team in the fourth quarter at some point, and I'll have my eyes glued to see which squad it is.
All right, and then finally, Auburn at Kentucky. Auburn's 0-4. Kentucky's 1-4 in the SEC. The Tigers just keep on getting close and then falling apart at the end. And Kentucky, the win is against Ole Miss.
Yeah, isn't that funny? Yeah, no, I look at Auburn and I'm like, I don't know if they can come up with any more ways to lose games, right? I mean, you look at the Oklahoma game, the pick six, they lose that game, and you're like, man, that's crazy. You lost last week to a comeback from a quarterback that was gone for 2 hours. You know what I mean? Like man, and what's funny is that's usually the kind of stuff that I feel like in history has happened to Alabama against Auburn. You're like, man, like I was there at the Mac Jones game in like 2019 where the ball hits off the receiver's back in the flat and the Auburn linebacker takes it 100 yards the other way. And you're like, dude, like, how did that even happen? The field goal situation with the timeout and all this stuff before half, the doink off the upright at the end of the game. You're like, how does this stuff always happen? Kentucky's favored in this game, dude. Like, Kentucky is favored in this game. I think just because they're probably more consistent at what they are, and Auburn's an absolute roller coaster. I'm not impressed with anything Auburn has going on offensively right now. I would pick Kentucky if I was picking this. Although it's very close, I would probably pick Kentucky. Home field, night game. Auburn's going to have to prove something. I don't know, man. Tough one.
All right, and that's it. And then Bama and Missouri. And I know you're taking Missouri.
Bama.
Taking Missouri.
Bama. Let's go, Mick. I'm tired of it. We get back on track this weekend, Mick. When we come back on Tuesday, I'm getting right in the camera. Come back on Tuesday, we're talking about a lopsided dub against the top 25 team. That's how I feel.
Yeah, I think you're right. Well, show is, again, brought to you by mybookie.ag. Promo code next round, double your initial deposit. You guys just heard Mike's picks. Make your own picks there. And don't forget, covercrimson.com, covering recruiting. Bama with the #1 recruiting class. Clint Lamb's on there and has documented that recruiting class, what to expect from those guys. There's been some action. Alabama's had a couple of flips that they've had in the last week, and including 4-star tight end that they got away from North Carolina, Pritchett. So just doing what they got to do on the recruiting trail, and the losses haven't really affected Bama's ability to go out and get talent. But we'll have.
When I can replace you, Mick, I will replace you. Just remember that. When I can replace you, I will replace you.
That must have been nice to hear Coach Saban say that to you guys.
I'm like,
replace me.
Me? Oh no, me? Oh,
oh, you mean Barron?
Oh, probably. I'm like in the back looking at somebody going.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, look, guys, thanks for hanging out with us again. Like and subscribe, thumbs up, roll tide, everybody. Have a great weekend, and we will talk to you again early next week.